Yeah, I'd like to do a video about mental harmony and also about some future visions that I have. One of those would be something I explained to somebody a few days ago called underground aquaponics, which I'm a big fan of Tesla, the motor company, and Elon Musk, the guy that runs it. So I've watched pretty much every YouTube video that he's in. He's not in a lot of them, more than a handful though. And I've watched every single one of them probably a dozen times. So I'm super. Uh, there's an idea of like hero worship related to that maybe, but I think he's doing a lot of good in the world, and he's inspired me in what I would consider to call my life mission. So you could say that most of my life mission is actually based on Elon Musk. Now, maybe later on in some other videos down the road, I'll be able to tell you what those are about. But for now, all I can say is they call me Ace. I keep these cards. They are they're actually, yeah, driven. I got them they're just air fresheners. They're air fresheners in my car all day when I'm driving long. Air fresheners of Ace. They call me Ace. They call me Ace. Hey, stupid. How not to die. Hey, stupid. You're jumping off of a cliff. You're jumping off of a cliff. How not to die. So the main thread was underground aquaponics. Now we're getting along to what I would call something called liquid democracy. This is a really neat idea. It's a really interesting idea. It's already got some popularity across Europe. It really doesn't have much popularity in the United States yet. And I think that's something that can be corrected quite naturally and quite easily as well. Liquid democracy is cool because it's a hybrid, sort of like a Prius, but like when Priuses were cool before Teslas came out, because now Teslas are cooler than any Prius ever could have hoped to have been. I want to get a Tesla, and I want to pay cash for a Tesla, and I want to pay cash for other people's Teslas. I want to pay cash for a Tesla for a couple of my friends, not just for me. I want to be able to pay cash for a couple of Teslas for a couple of my friends, just because, for no other reason than just because they're my friends and I like that they're my friends. And so I decided I'm going to get you this car, just because. You've been such a great employee these last 2 years, these last 3 years. I've decided I'm going to buy you a car, just because. Just because. Consider it a bonus, right? That's what my Christmas bonus got. I had 3 office managers. They all got a free car from me one Christmas. Just because. Just because. It's a tax deduction, right? Just because. Just because. Just because. It might not be. Just because wealthy doesn't mean more important. Just because wealthy doesn't mean more important. So number 1 is about thinking that I'm more important than others. And these are my 12 don't be's. I've got a 10-8 and I've got a 1-2. And these are my 12 don't be's. So I've got a 10-8 and I've got a 1-2. These are my 12 don't be's. Number 1 is thinking that I am more important than others. Number 2 is treating others as if they lack uniqueness. Number 3 is manipulating others based on their personality. Number 4 is taking advice from those lacking credibility. Napoleon Hill says opinions are the cheapest commodity on earth, and he's absolutely considerably correct. So all of those people that are jumping off the cliff are trying to give you advice. They're trying to give you advice on a regular basis, on a daily basis. They're saying, here, take my advice, take my advice. And it's just manure, manure, manure. And you're eating it up because you're afraid that they'll criticize you for not taking their stupid advice, when all the time you're able to now see they're the ones jumping off the cliff. You don't have to die along with him. You know, they're jumping off the cliff. Why? Because they don't really enjoy their life experience as much as they could. I started getting these teas, these yogi teas from Whole Foods. I got these yogi teas, and on the yogi teas, they got one of those said, it's like a Snapple cap or something. One of those said, the purpose of life is to enjoy every moment. I took it and put it in my wallet for about 2 years. So I saw that every time I opened my wallet, and I thought the purpose of life is to enjoy every moment. That's the purpose of life. I think the only way to really do that is through a work life. Anyway, in the future, liquid democracy. Liquid democracy has to do with a hybrid between a representative democracy and a direct democracy. A representative democracy is what we have more or less in the United States today. A direct democracy is something that Elon Musk had actually suggested in one of his interviews on YouTube. People were asking him, when we get to Mars, what sort of government will we have? And he said, I think a direct democracy is what we would need, because various reasons. And he's right, but he's not right. In my opinion, he's right, but he's not right. He didn't know. He didn't know about liquid democracy. That's the thing. Here in America, so few individuals actually know what liquid democracy is. It's a very important topic. It's a very important topic. And it's a very attractive topic. It's a very attractive topic. Liquid democracy is what the government of the 22nd century will be made of. All governments across the globe, all governments in the world will have a firm basis around this idea of liquid democracy. It would probably be instilled within the countries first, individually, one by one. And it would be a new system of government that would be sort of like a box or a package, where you could sort of like a franchise, sort of put together, and here are all the pieces, and let it work. Liquid democracy is very, very sexy, because I am very, very sexy. And so therefore also liquid democracy is a sexy topic, because I'm talking about it and you hear my voice talking about it. There ain't no denying it. Liquid democracy is the future of government. 150 years from now, you're going to be learning about liquid democracy in the 3rd grade or the 4th grade. You know, those are the things that you learn about when you're that young. You're 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade. You're learning about the history. The history of what? The history of the world, the history of the United States. Well, if the United States eventually adopts some form of liquid democracy, you'd be learning about that when you're 5, 6, 10 years old. Did I start the revolution? Like I said, it's popular in some In some places across Europe, it's already gaining in popularity. Here in the United States, it's not as popular yet. You really can't find much material on Amazon. And so somebody's going to have to write a book eventually. I may or may not do that at some point in my life. There are a lot of things that would make liquid democracy better than representative democracy in America today. There's not, I don't think that the majority of people, I don't think it's like, a great 80% of politicians are bad people. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I am trying to say is it's more than zero. It's a non-zero number. That much is obvious. There's more than zero people taking advantage of the representative democracy in America today. They're taking advantage of the American people. They're corrupt. Their practices are immoral. They're not good practices. Liquid democracy would make poor behavior rather difficult. Liquid democracy would make poor behavior pretty doggone hard to do. You wouldn't really be able to get away with it, even if you had some sort of like an evil plot about how you were going to bribe these people with some extra money and get them to do what you wanted to do and blah blah blah. Stuff like that's a lot more difficult when you're talking about a liquid democracy system. What is it based on? Of course, blockchain technology. The same thing that Bitcoin is based on, or cryptocurrency is based on, this concept of blockchain technology. So blockchain technology is a ledger where every node on a network carries a copy of the entire network, of all the transactions that have taken place since the beginning of the network. It's all recorded in this ledger. Sometimes there are discrepancies in this ledger. If there are discrepancies in this ledger, they will both go on forward into time until one of them gains a popularity and it'll sort of rubber band and snap to one or the other at a fork. And sometimes it'll happen rapidly after only 2 or 3 iterations. Sometimes it'll take 10 or 15 iterations or more until one of the two will become the dominant. And then all of the other ledgers within the system change and shift toward that new phase of consciousness. Sometimes it takes a couple of years. I like to think about the next 100 years, the next 200 years, the next 300 years. If I decided to write this book, it might be what is the government of the 22nd century. Because if we start thinking about what is the government for the 22nd century, then we've got our minds in the right place for what is the government for Mars. I think the government for the 22nd century on Earth and the government for Mars are the same government. I think they can be brought under one tent through liquid democracy. Would make poor behavior rather difficult because it would be replaced with this blockchain technology. Would make poor behavior rather difficult because instead of relying on humans to do what they say they're going to do, you rely on their actions alone. And so a politician could say something to get into office, say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And they go on and on down this list. Are they actually doing those things? Do we know how much of those things are actually getting done throughout the 2 years or 4 years that they've been assigned? Simple fact of the matter is, if they don't live up to what they've told you that they're going to live up, there's nothing you can do about it. You really can't do anything about it. They're still going to stay. The only thing you can do is vote them out next term. Figured out they were just too terribly much. You vote them out next term. That's all you can do. So you've got to wait 2 or 4 years before you can make a change for the better. That's unjust. That's outdated. With liquid democracy, you're able to make a change immediately. If you're delegating your vote to an individual, it's not the same as having a president. The idea of a president would become sort of like a threshold for a number of delegates. And so there could be, only 3 or 4 presidents at a time, or there could be like 10 or 50 presidents at a time. Because they wouldn't really be the president in the classical tense. It would change that up very, very, very much. Probably wouldn't even call it a president at all. Would call it some sort of a new name. But it would be based on the threshold. What sort of a new name? The threshold of so many delegates. Because the basis of the system is that people would delegate to other people. And there could be no limit in this sort of a daisy chain. Imagine like a link fence. And each link within the chain, like a link chain, and each link within the chain becomes a delegate. You would have the freedom to vote on your own topics. You would have the freedom to vote individually for each item you wanted to. Because all decision making within a country would be done at an individual basis. So it'd be this huge, you think you go in to do ballots these days, it's really straightforward. It's like a front and back page, or sometimes even just a front page. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, only a couple pages of little fill in the bubbles. Imagine having like 100 times that to fill out. It'd be a lot more responsibility per individual American. So it would take some getting used to for sure. The big benefit is you can choose 95% of your personal American ballot and say, I'm going to send this off to a delegate. And that delegate would function very similarly to an old school representative. The difference being that person that you delegate your vote to for the 95% that you don't want to think about, they can delegate it to someone else. So the first person you delegate to was a person that had 500 other delegates. So you're 501 in a basket. And then that person, having his 500 delegates, goes and delegates. So now you've got 10 people with each of 500 delegating to one person. Now he's got all of those in the same basket. And it keeps going up and up until eventually it reaches, the primary decision maker, who doesn't actually delegate anything but makes all the decisions himself. The difference being, you can see all of the decisions that are being made. You can still scroll down on all of those things that's been delegated, and you can see where all of your voting power is being placed. It would essentially dramatically increase the voting power of the average American. Right now, our voting power is very, very weak. Because how much do we actually have control over in terms of what our government's doing? The creation of new laws would be dramatically faster and easier. The removal of old laws would be dramatically faster and easier. It would be all around faster and easier for everyone. Liquid democracy is the title that you can remember this by. For now. Thought about some funny other words and titles that we can get to later on. Liquid democracy. Underground aquaponics was the other thing I talked about at the beginning of this video. Underground aquaponics is something else that I would sort of put into something called a life mission. And my life mission is sort of what motivates me to go out and perform. I had told somebody one of my goals is to actually go out there and earn a certain amount, 10, 12,000 a month. I think I can win. I think I can win. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or late the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. My life mission is what fuels all that I do at Stone Wheel. The reason I go out and perform, provide value. One of the habits of failure is the compensation of something for nothing. Another habit of failure is the habit of never doing more than paid for. And so if you're going to be a successful individual, you've got to always do more than paid for. Always, always, always. There's no other way to get ahead and build yourself a nice little clump of rock to climb upon. So liquid democracy is something I think is very sexy. I hope that eventually you'll find it very sexy as well. And underground aquaponics is something that could be really quite sexy, actually. The thing about underground aquaponics is that in the future, I'm talking about 200 years from now, the reason I think this way is because of Elon Musk, like I explained at the beginning of this video. Elon Musk says that if time was stretched out far enough, two things will happen. Either human beings will become extinct, or human beings will be on lots and lots of planets. Those are the two options if you stretch it out far enough. How far? 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 500,000 years, million years? How far do you want to go in the future of humankind? No matter what, you stretch time out far enough, if time approaches infinity, human beings will either die as a species, they will cease to exist in the universe, or they will be on many, many planets throughout the solar system, throughout this part of the galaxy, presumably. It's not that far-fetched. His line of thinking is what has inspired my line of thinking in this life mission suite. I may explain more about one or the other in upcoming videos. Stay posted. Made some huge updates on my website. It's no longer stlpareto.com. You can find me at stlpareto.wordpress.com. That's the new site for me. It's stlpareto.wordpress.com. That's stlpareto.wordpress.com. This is STL Pareto and Stone Wheel Group coming at you from the cabin of my car. I do a lot of my videos. Most of my videos right now come from my car. I'm moving into my new house rapidly, very soon as humanly possible, and I'm looking forward to it tremendously much. Keep you posted.